Hi, I'm Marilyn Fox. I'm the artistic director of Pacific Resident Theater. The plays are Fam and Yam and The Dumb Waiter. We call it Albee Pinter because Fam and Yam is a almost unknown play by Edward Albee. It's the curtain raiser. And then The Dumb Waiter, which you may have heard of, but maybe never seen, one of Pinter's most brilliant one-act plays. And it's 70 minutes long, and it's a Pacific Resident Theater. It's been running since September, and now we're extended again into January. We reopened January 25th. Come quickly because it's a 2-week extension, and we really would love to see you there. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how the plays occurred, how we decided to produce them, and more about their content, please listen to this. I fell in love with the theater for a couple of reasons. One, my sister was very obsessed with Shakespeare. She had, and a great many good novels too. And I would, I would kind of sneak into her room and like look at the Shakespeare and around that time, my mom took my sister and myself to see a film of Laurence Olivier acting in Shakespeare at USC, and it was on a huge screen. And I was completely unprepared for it. It moved me to such an extent that I knew while I was sitting there that I would have to do this that would be what I was going to do for my life, because I couldn't believe how beautiful it all came together. Everything came together for me. My love of writing, my love, my love of justice. My mother was a wonderful person and just an amazing. She had escaped from the Holocaust. She was from Austria, from Vienna, Austria, and she had such a modern view about everything, about the rights of man, about forgiveness, about people of all backgrounds and sexual preferences, everything. She was so ahead of her time in terms of what she accepted as completely and utterly normal and beautiful. I can't say enough good things about her. So because of her teaching me all these things, and then me seeing this production and seeing this brilliant genius playwright and this great actor and all of it together, I literally couldn't speak, and I'm a very talkative person, so I really couldn't even articulate how it had affected me. And I think from that moment on, I knew that I loved acting, and that it was, if I could touch something that was that beautiful and touch other people that touched me, that I had to just do. That was my my passion, to be able to be part of something so much bigger than myself. Such great writing, such great themes, that it was I remember the moment very strongly. So yeah. Well, I am primarily, in my thinking and the way I process everything, an actor. And everything comes from acting for me. Everything comes from every bit of understanding. But I was very, very fortunate, blessed, in that I fell in love from afar with an actor, a Los Angeles actor, who was part of a theater called the Company Theater, which really started small, unusual theater in Los Angeles. The Company Theater should really be known. It was a group of very brilliant people who graduated from USC, and some other people as well. But Gar Campbell, I saw a picture of him in the newspaper when I was 16 years old. And I knew when I saw that picture, I just knew that someday, I prayed that someday I would work with him and that someday I would know him. And I was rather fat and had acne, and I really didn't want to meet him at that age. But I was like, I loved him and I wanted to work with him. And I knew of his work. And so I spent 27 years until his passing with him. And through my very blessed association with him, I learned all about theater in so many ways, because he was a brilliant actor. And he wouldn't like me to say that because he didn't like superlatives and he didn't like to be called a genius, but he was one. And he had a kind of almost ability to look at a script like a sushi chef would look at a piece of fish. He could just slice it and get to the very simplest clarity of what was there and how to make that visible for an audience. And I benefited so greatly, and so did PRT, from that clarity, that brilliance. And so I hope and pray some of it rubbed off on me. And that one of my things as artistic director of the theater is that I really try to uphold that way of really looking at something and feeling that we have the right to say, we really looked at this. Now we want to show it to you. And, that's a very, very lofty goal. So you don't always achieve it, but you always try. And we often do achieve it, thank God. And anyway, when you say, well, why did I go from acting to directing? In a way, out of necessity and somewhat out of passion. Because there were certain plays that I just wanted to direct, because I felt no one could love them the way I love them. So I wanted to do them. But in general, I would say that it was because at the time I became artistic director of Pacific Resident Theater, the theater was going through a transition, and I was really, in a way, doing it to protect the future of our theater, because I wanted somebody who really loved our theater to be, watching out for it. So that was really my main reason. And most of my directing had for passion projects, but I've done a lot of artistic directing and worked very much on the outside of plays to support other directors. So yes, but I do enjoy it, and but like everything in our art, you enjoy it with great humbleness and trepidation. At least how I feel about it. Theater experience, why is it so unique for the audience and the actor? I think theater comes from ritual and originally from religion. And it's a spiritual experience. And I think those kind of things are eternal. So when a group of people come together, and when something actually occurs for them and for the people that are acting, which is a miracle when it really happens. But if something truly occurs in front of an audience, they always know, and they never forget it. They never forget it, and they know. You can't fool an audience. An audience can have it, an audience can serve them, a hamburger, and they'll be happy if they're hungry and they'll eat it. But if they are in the presence of something that is, actually happening, all of us who love theater know about that when that happens. So that's what makes it that way, because you're in the presence and you're going like this. Is this happening? is this actually happening in front of me? And I think we're all waiting for that. So the audience is waiting for that. The actors are waiting to be able to be transported in that way, and everybody's together for that to occur. That titration of all of the work, all of the great writing, the acting, the directing, the audience, that particular audience, that particular alchemy, all of those things come together. And I think the possibility that something is going to really happen in front of us and to us is it's a magical experience. So I think that's it. It was interesting how it happened, how we made this decision to do the Albee Pinter evening. The Albee Pinter came out of the idea that before the pandemic, two actors at our theater were just workshopping a production of The Dumb Waiter. They wanted to do The Dumb Waiter, and they were doing it as a workshop. And so they continued for a while with the director, but then other things, started to take everybody away from it. But the two actors continued for like 2 years, meeting twice a week or 3 times a week. And they had talked to me a little bit about maybe it being a main stage show at the theater, because they were just fiddling with it, right? And I at first thought, no, I don't want to do something that dark after the pandemic. I don't want to do that. It's just such a dark play. And I kind of said, I don't know, you guys. And one of the actors, Jason Downs, called me maybe once a month, and he would just jingle up and say, Marilyn, what are you feeling? We've been working. You want to watch a little bit of it on Zoom? We'll all get together. He would just, mention it. And as we kept going, and this thing I just said about the spiritual side of it, I started to feel like they loved each other so much, these two guys. Loved working together, and really their meetings were allowing them to kind of get through the pandemic. It was like they had something to look forward to all the time, to meet twice a week or 3 times a week and just run lines even. So my heart started going over there, they really love this. Where love is involved, look at it. Because, it's not an ego trip. It's not just we want to do this. It's really coming from their center. So I started to get more interested. And in the meantime, Lena and I talked, and I said, well, maybe we could pair it with an Albee, like a lighter Albee. Maybe something we will find an unknown one, or something, very unusual that isn't normally produced. And that would make a nice little evening. And so that's how that happened. And then when it actually started to really occur, Alina was drawn away from it to another project, and it fell to me because we were already going ahead. We had the rights, and so I just jumped in really quite into the cold water of it. But that's how we made the decision. It happened kind of out of just not looking a gift horse in the mouth and going, oh, maybe this is really something very important for these two actors to do. So, and then I started to see the play more, and of course it is, I think in many ways, The Dumb Waiter is a perfect play and a brilliant play. And so I got more and more interested in it. Well, Fam and Yam is a rarely produced short one act. It's really a curtain raiser. But I thought, as we were kind of thinking about doing the plays, well, wouldn't it be interesting? Because I've been having this kind of penchant to do something from the 60s, I was thinking, lava lamps and some Burt Bacharach music, but instead it started to turn into these two brilliant writers. And so I thought, well, it will be interesting to examine this little play by Edward Albee that was written 2 years before Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And it will be interesting also to see this early masterpiece by Pinter and how their other plays sprung from these beginnings. So I got interested in how that could be thematic. And in a way, the two plays do deal with surprise, kind of a practical joke, and also a bleakness about, well, I shouldn't even say a bleakness, a kind of terror of what the world, the dangers of the world, and a comic way of examining it that is absurd. So that even though it wasn't apparent that the two plays would naturally be done together, they do share a theme, and so I think that is one of the reasons that I find them interesting, and find both in terms of story. I'll just simply say, one, Famine Yam, is about an older writer and a younger writer, and a meeting that I have found out since was an actual occurrence between Edward Albee and a famous playwright. And that's that one. It takes place in the older writers, the very famous playwrights, kind of penthouse in the Upper East Side. And of course, The Dumb Waiter is about two hitmen. And if you ever saw the film En Bruges, Martin McDonagh dedicated that film to The Dumb Waiter and to Harold Pinter. And so that's about two hitmen that are in trouble for something, or it appears maybe are in trouble for something, and are dealing with this alone in a room. So that's the kind of the synopsis. The actors in both the one-act plays are members of the longtime members of Pacific Resident Theater, wonderful actors. Brad Greenquist plays the older writer in the first Famine Yam, and Jason Downs plays the younger writer. And Jason, who, as I said, was kind of the engine behind this production, he is plays the younger hitman in The Dumb Waiter, and Anthony Fox plays the older one. So they're I can't say enough good things about them, because I made a lot of changes from what they did originally, and aside from that, we continued to work on the plays. You know what I mean? Even during very late into the rehearsal process, really made changes and tried different things until we found that we really got to this, as much as we could, to the center of these plays. So they went through a lot of ups and downs with it, but they were so flexible and had such a wonderful attitude. I was really very, very lucky to be having such a wonderful, fearless kind of actors about making changes and experimenting. So, what do I want the audiences to get out of these one-act plays? Well, a good time. A good time. An interesting time. A funny and frightening and truthful time. I think The Dumb Waiter, the reason I think it is a work of genius is because it does exist on 3 levels. It really exists as a completely comic play, almost in the sense of Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy fighting a monster or something from outer space. You know what I mean? It's like one of those situations where two bungling comic characters who are partners are trying very, very hard, and it's completely comic. It also has a horror underneath it of, I guess where a lot of the absurdists wrote about World War II and Hitler and the horrors of fascism and anything like fascism, that is such a horror to mankind. And then on another level, it's just a very, in the way you see on Bruges, a very truthful examination of two partners under a kind of a Sophie's choice, an extreme situation. And so if one is lucky enough to have a cast where you can explore it, you can maybe get all three levels. And that, like I said, when an audience sees something like that, they kind of explode because they get a real hit. And the other play, Fam and Yam, is fun, and it's an interesting piece of history. And with Brad and Jason in it, it's all the better, And our costume designer designed it in a real 1960s look, so it's quite wonderful and visually. Any chance you get to see anything by either one of these writers that has care put into it and behind it and respect for those two writers, I think is an interesting thing for an audience to see. And also because as much as people read The Dumb Waiter or heard of it in college or, many people have never seen the play. And I'm sure no one has ever seen Fam and Yam who comes to see the play, because it was only done once for one night in America as part of a one-night event in New York in the 1960s. Both these plays were first produced in the 1960s. And the only other time it was done, as far as I know, in this country, was when Edward Albee himself did a retrospective of his work that toured in 1975. So I think that's, it's just very interesting to see something that's not in any of the anthologies or hardly any of them. And so it's a chance to see something that you won't get to see again, probably. And as I said, a lot of time and care was put into it because it was a passion project. You know what I mean? It was something that, and so I think audiences are, like I say, I think they're so intelligent, and I think they get it. They get it when something is, was happening in front of them. So yeah, that's why I think they're coming. They're short. Fam and Yam is about 15 minutes long. That's 1/5, and the Dumb Waiter is 50 minutes. We were very true to the stage directions, which sometimes one isn't, but we were with these two plays. So they really do come in at that time. And it packs. It's like it's definitely a meal. You know what I mean? It's it's very brief in its length. And the other thing that's been really interesting is a friend came to see the play, a man by the name of Ray Zimmerman, and he came early, like to a preview. And he said, "Oh, it's very, very good. But, he said, it would be nice if there was a third act." And I said, "What do you mean? Another play?" And he said, "No, I don't know. Maybe you should do a talk back with the audience every night. Not a voluntary thing, and maybe have some guests come." And so for every single show, if the audience likes to stay, we take a little tiny break in bathrooms, and then they come back in 5 minutes, and the actors and myself, I moderate. And we've had 3 wonderful guests who were fantastic, and we will continue to have guest speakers. But the audiences ask questions, and I think part of the reason the play has continued to grow is because the audience is so smart, and they ask questions that are very thought-provoking, and we have kind of a lively 20 minute to half hour discussion. And that, it's funny, but I think it was a wonderful suggestion because the audience needed to be together, and not just to come and see the play, which was wonderful, and they could have gone home, but to just sit together for a minute and to be together and think about it and to be together, you know what I mean, in a discussion. And that's been very much a part of the experience of the play. And of course, not everybody stays, but I would say on a given night, at least half the audience stays, and sometimes the whole audience stays. So, so that's been another interesting part of the experience of seeing Albee Pinter, as we call it. I'm constantly blown away by how intelligent and how much I learned from the audience. It's just wonderful. I think we have a really special people who come to the theater, really passionate about theater. So at BRT. I'm Marilyn Fox. I'm the artistic director of Pacific Resident Theater. Our production is called Albee Pinter. It's 2 brief one-act plays, The Fam and Yam by Edward Albee, play that is a rarely seen play, and The Dumb Waiter, considered one of Harold Pinter's best short plays, in a double evening, no intermission, 70 minutes long. We reopened the play on February 25th. It's right now scheduled to do 2 weeks, but we're getting a lot of calls. So come and see it and tell your friends. And we really look forward to seeing you at the theater. And I think you'll have a very interesting and a good time seeing the plays. And we'd love to share it with our audiences. Come to Pacific Resident Theater in Venice. We're going into our 37th anniversary. So we'd love to share the work with you. Thank you.